am Sheryl, 33 years old, and just a few days ago, the biggest success of my FBI career would become my greatest burden. The cyber surveillance program I'd spent years painstakingly perfecting became the center of chaos at my family's infamous annual gala, when my mother Meredith demanded I finally stop embarrassing the family with my mundane career. My refusal earned me public ridicule from her, delivered with all the calculated precision of an assassin. "Honestly, Sheryl, it's pathetic," she sneered, her voice piercing through the champagne-fueled chatter. "How can someone with our last name spend their life typing spreadsheets?" A ripple of hushed whispers and muffled laughs swept through the crowd of guests, most of whom were my family's equally image-obsessed social circle. I didn't cry or storm out, instead something deep and defiant awoke within me. My mother's mockery had unwittingly lit a fuse. My determination to finally show them the truth would alter our family forever. But before I tell you how my undercover life exploded spectacularly at that dinner, let me know where you're watching from, and hit subscribe if you've ever overcome something for your family, because you have no idea what they'll do once the curtain drops and secrets spill into the open. I've spent my whole life as the black sheep of a family, so flawlessly groomed for success that our Christmas card looks like an advertisement for an Ivy League university. My siblings, Fletcher and Dahlia, could grace magazine covers. Fletcher, charmingly arrogant with perfectly tousled hair, is a corporate lawyer. Dahlia, beautiful and charismatic, runs her own fashion empire. Our mother Meredith never tires of flaunting their achievements at every social event, every cocktail party, every insufferable brunch. And then there's me, the quiet administrative worker, invisible in their world. Ever since childhood, I knew I didn't quite fit in. While Fletcher and Dahlia effortlessly drew crowds, I found myself in corners, observing. They thrived on spotlight and praise. I thrived on puzzles and patterns, always seeing connections no one else did. My knack for details, my silent intensity, seemed utterly incomprehensible to my family, who valued flashy accomplishments and prestige over genuine substance. My decision to join the FBI shocked precisely no one, but only because no one bothered to ask. They'd assumed I'd gotten some dreary government job filing papers, a career they happily mocked behind my back, loudly enough to ensure I overheard. But the reality was so much more intense, demanding, and dangerous than anything they could imagine. At Quantico, I excelled quietly, dismantling networks that trafficked human misery online. My colleagues quickly learned to respect my methods, thorough, meticulous, and devastatingly effective. My supervisors placed immense trust in my judgment, eventually tasking me with creating a cyber surveillance program capable of dismantling international cybercrime rings. Over years of late nights, takeout meals eaten at desks, and failed relationships, sacrificed for secrecy, I succeeded. My system became legendary within the Bureau, credited with crippling some of the most dangerous digital threats the country had ever faced. But each major breakthrough happened silently, my victories hidden beneath layers of classified documents and coded briefings. My rewards were private commendations, medals I couldn't show, honors my family would never recognize or believe. Instead, year after year, I endured the icy disdain of family dinners, where my mother's raised eyebrow was sharper than any interrogation technique I'd ever learned. Meredith would announce Fletcher's latest multi-million-dollar case, Dahlia's prestigious fashion shows, and then she'd pause dramatically before saying, "Oh, and Sheryl, still filing paperwork at that dull government office." This gala was supposed to be just another unbearable evening, another exercise in stoicism and patience. But this time, everything was different. My program had just been greenlit for a mission so high stakes the implications would ripple across the globe. Lives depended on it. Nations depended on it. My life's work was about to be validated in the most critical way possible. And yet, here I was, enduring yet another round of condescending ridicule. "You're embarrassing yourself," Meredith repeated, louder now, eyes glittering with cruel amusement. Fletcher chuckled, shaking his head with mock sympathy. Dahlia, perfectly coiffed as always, smirked over her champagne flute, silently daring me to respond. I felt my pulse quicken, my training kicking in, calm overtaking humiliation. The irony was breathtaking. I'd fought cybercriminal masterminds without breaking a sweat, yet my family could still trigger my insecurities with surgical precision. Meredith narrowed her eyes. Sheryl, say something useful for once. Instead, I smiled calmly, the smallest hint of challenge in my voice. Maybe someday, Mom, you'll see how useful I actually am. Meredith laughed sharply, dismissing my words as empty bravado. But as the evening wore on, she would soon realize her mistake, and I would finally have my moment to show them exactly what I'd accomplished behind their backs. My invisibility in the family wasn't a new phenomenon. It was practically woven into my identity. From as far back as I can remember, every milestone of mine was overshadowed, minimized, or flat out ignored. It was as if my accomplishments, no matter how significant, were invisible ink on the pages of our family history. The problem wasn't that my family hated me. It was worse, they simply didn't see me. Flashback to my high school graduation. Fletcher was already a rising star at Stanford, acing law courses and charming professors with a smile so polished it practically gleamed. Dahlia, only 2 years older than me, had just launched her first boutique line to glowing reviews, already tagged as a fashion prodigy. The morning of my graduation, the breakfast table buzzed with their successes, their futures stretching gloriously before them. When I timidly showed Meredith the acceptance letter from Georgetown, my dream school, she barely glanced at it, tossing it aside like junk mail. Her dismissive words were so casual yet brutal that they lodged permanently in my memory. "Georgetown?" she scoffed, sipping her coffee. "Isn't that the one with those cute, quaint buildings?" I suppose even average schools need students. I stared at my acceptance letter, feeling the pride drain from my chest. I wanted desperately to challenge her, to tell her how selective the program was, how much I'd sacrificed to get there. Instead, I swallowed my hurt and nodded quietly. A few weeks later at my graduation party, a modest event dwarfed by Dahlia's lavish celebrations, I stood quietly by the snack table, overhearing my mother proudly telling guests about Fletcher's impending internship at a prestigious law firm, then pivoting seamlessly to Dahlia's magazine cover story. "And what about your youngest?" asked a guest politely. Meredith smiled indulgently, the kind reserved for children who'd made a charming mess. "Oh, Sheryl's off to study something or other at Georgetown. She's always been a bit different. I expect she'll do fine enough." Fine enough. Those words echoed painfully in my ears as I watched Dahlia glide through the room, effortlessly captivating the crowd. Fletcher entertained a circle of laughing guests, his charisma magnetic. In that moment, I felt achingly invisible, like an extra in a scene never written for me. University was my chance at independence, a chance to rewrite the narrative my family had written for me. I excelled, top of my class in computer science and criminology, yet every semester break, I returned home only to find my family completely uninterested. Fletcher's new law victories and Dahlia's expanding fashion empire eclipsed anything I had achieved. Once, I placed my Dean's List certificate on the kitchen counter, a small, desperate plea for acknowledgement. It vanished beneath a stack of Dahlia's fashion catalogs casually discarded by Meredith without even a glance. That silent rejection hurt worse than any harsh words could have. As graduation approached, I'd quietly applied to the FBI's elite cybercrime division, an ambition so perfectly suited to my skills, yet utterly foreign to my family's idea of success. On the day of the FBI acceptance call, exhilaration surged through me. I was chosen from thousands. My potential finally recognized. When I shared the news at dinner, Meredith's reaction cut sharply. "The FBI, Sheryl, darling, what on earth will our friends think? Couldn't you just do something more refined?" Dahlia laughed softly, sharing a knowing look with Fletcher, who shook his head and sighed theatrically. "Sheryl always did prefer invisibility," he joked, his tone acidic beneath the playful facade. I silently clenched my fists beneath the table. Invisibility had never been a preference. It was forced upon me, repeatedly. But I said nothing, vowing privately to succeed so spectacularly that even they couldn't ignore it forever. As my FBI career skyrocketed, the irony grew bitter. My successes multiplied in secret, impossible to showcase publicly. Promotions were hidden behind layers of classification, medals discreetly presented in rooms closed to outsiders. My supervisors praised me privately, but at home I remained as invisible as ever. Over the years I began to accept my secret identity as both shield and sword. While Dahlia and Fletcher chased external validation, their happiness tethered to others' approval. my satisfaction ran deeper. The truth of my work, even if hidden, became my anchor, my strength. Yet, it still stung every time my family treated my career like a punchline. Now, facing yet another dreaded family event, this gala promising more subtle humiliations, I reflected bitterly on this lifetime of invisibility. Despite my best efforts, my family's distorted perceptions remained unshakable. No matter how high I climbed, no matter how critical my missions became, to them, I'd forever remain the overlooked, insignificant child. But they were about to learn that invisibility has its advantages, especially when what they couldn't see would soon explode spectacularly into view. The secret I built started quietly. A whisper of an idea at 3 a.m, illuminated by the cold glow of my laptop screen in an empty FBI office. By then, I'd grown accustomed to late nights, bad coffee, and endless rows of code, a silent, meticulous life worlds away from Fletcher's glittering courtroom dramas or Dahlia's bright runway lights. But that night was different. That night, I finally understood that invisibility could be a weapon. I just finished dismantling a cybercrime ring trafficking stolen identities across multiple continents. My team celebrated quietly with takeout Chinese and muted smiles, another invisible victory. But as they trickled out, murmuring goodnights, I lingered behind, restless. Something in me hungered for more, for a deeper, more lasting triumph, one so powerful it couldn't be dismissed or forgotten. I was done merely reacting to threats. I wanted to create a system that stopped them before they could even begin. Sitting in the dimly lit office, surrounded by glowing monitors, I had an aha moment, so clear it was like seeing an invisible thread suddenly illuminated. If we could proactively detect and dismantle cyber threats, anticipating criminals before they struck, our entire approach would transform. Lives, economies, even national security could shift dramatically. The idea consumed me immediately. Over weeks and months, I quietly built my project from scratch, working obsessively. My supervisors initially expressed skepticism. Proactive cyber surveillance seemed impossible, bordering on fiction. But I persisted, driven by conviction that bordered on obsession. Day and night blended together, weekends disappeared entirely, relationships withered and faded into the background. Yet none of it deterred me. I kept it secret, even within the bureau, speaking of it only to my closest colleague and friend, Grayson. Brilliant, intense, and also somewhat overlooked by senior agents. He became my confidant, collaborator, and fierce supporter. Together, hidden away from prying eyes, we refined algorithms, tested models, failed repeatedly, and rebuilt stronger each time. One particular night stands out vividly. It was just after 2 a.m., the office silent except for the hum of machines, our eyes bloodshot from fatigue. We'd tested hundreds of iterations, but finally, one succeeded beyond our expectations. A subtle beep confirmed a successful intercept of a simulated threat hours before it could strike. We stared at the screen, stunned, silent, then Grayson turned to me, wide-eyed. "You just changed the game, Sheryl," he whispered in awe. I nodded numbly, exhilaration and exhaustion mingling in my veins. We just changed everything. Our success quickly rippled upward through the FBI ranks, though quietly, hidden beneath layers of confidentiality. Meetings behind closed doors multiplied, senior leadership briefings intensified. Soon my creation was greenlit to become a central element in high-stakes classified operations, targeting global cyber syndicates previously deemed untouchable. Yet, to the outside world, and especially my family, my work remained invisible, masked by the vague phrase, administrative work. I began living a double life. To my family, I was a mundane civil servant, occasionally receiving casual, mildly contemptuous comments at dinners or galas. Meanwhile, my real life was vibrant, adrenaline-fueled, and critically important. Each successful operation deepened my conviction that someday, somehow, the truth would break free, an undeniable triumph even Meredith couldn't dismiss with an elegant shrug. Still, the secrecy took its toll. Each visit home felt heavier, more unbearable. I watched Fletcher casually discuss his latest victory over cocktails, Dahlia charmingly regale guests about her latest fashion triumph. The temptation to reveal my truth became almost irresistible, yet I stayed silent. The stakes were too high, lives literally depended on my discretion. But silence came at a painful price, eroding my patience and confidence in the face of relentless dismissal. On the eve of my family's annual gala, a pivotal mission loomed. My program was scheduled to intercept one of the most dangerous cyber attacks ever identified, targeting critical infrastructure with the potential to cause catastrophic damage. Yet even with the monumental success at hand, I dreaded the inevitable humiliation awaiting me at home. The emotional chasm between the critical importance of my real life and my family's indifferent perceptions was nearly impossible to bridge. That night, preparing reluctantly for the gala, anxiety gnawed at me, a sickening tension in my stomach. Grayson called to reassure me about the mission's preparations, his voice steadying my nerves. "Tomorrow, the world changes, Sheryl. After this, no one can ignore what you've done." His words echoed through my mind as I dressed slowly, staring numbly at my reflection in the mirror. Could it finally be true? Would my hidden, painstakingly built secret become undeniable proof that I wasn't merely invisible, that my work truly mattered? As I slipped into my coat, readying myself for another round of dismissive smiles and pitying glances, I resolved silently that this would be the last time. No matter what happened next, tonight would mark the beginning of the end of my invisibility. For better or worse, my family would finally see me clearly, or they would lose me forever. The hours leading up to the annual gala were always uniquely torturous, but this time the dread felt sharper, almost physical. My work had reached a tipping point. Tomorrow morning at precisely 9 a.m., my surveillance program would execute its most critical operation yet. A high-stakes interception that could redefine cybersecurity nationwide. Yet here I was, standing in front of my mirror, heart hammering, not from fear of failing professionally, but from facing the judgmental stares of my own family. I adjusted my evening gown, smoothing the deep navy fabric, feeling like an imposter. At work, I felt comfortable in practical suits or hoodies and jeans, buried in technical complexities and lines of code. But tonight required another kind of armor entirely. Elegant, polished, deceptively confident. Makeup covered sleepless shadows beneath my eyes, my carefully styled hair giving a facade of effortless composure. Still, the reflection staring back seemed distant, almost unrecognizable. How could I stand proudly as myself in a room where I'd always been reduced to a dismissive footnote? My phone buzzed, shattering my thoughts. Grayson's reassuring text flashed on the screen. "Everything is prepped. Go pretend to have fun. Tomorrow, we show the world your genius." I smiled, despite myself, feeling a surge of gratitude. Grayson and my small trusted circle of colleagues had become the closest thing I had to genuine family. They understood the real me, the fiercely driven woman behind the quiet facade, the leader behind the scenes, the overlooked hero battling threats that most people couldn't even imagine. Outside my apartment, the city lights blinked softly, oblivious to the tension knotting my stomach. The gala was held each year at the stately Crestwood Manor, a lavish venue that had become synonymous with my family's prestige. My father, Quentin, a retired investment banker and master of social politics, was already at the manor, undoubtedly charming guests with easy confidence. Meredith would be orchestrating the event meticulously, every detail perfectly placed, ensuring our family's polished public image remained impeccable. Dahlia would arrive elegantly late, her fashionably bored expression hiding a sharp, calculating mind. Fletcher would charm effortlessly, his anecdotes rehearsed, laughter timed perfectly. I, as usual, would slip quietly through the room, making minimal impact, surviving on forced smiles and polite nods. The drive to Crestwood Manor was brief, yet felt endless. Pulling up to the stately entrance, I took a deep breath, steeling myself against the inevitable scrutiny. A valet took my keys with practiced efficiency, and suddenly there I was, alone in front of the grand entrance doors, shimmering under soft golden lights. Inside, laughter floated lightly, the murmur of polite conversation mingling with orchestral music. The gala was already alive, perfectly choreographed and glittering. Guests, clad in tuxedos and elegant gowns, flowed smoothly through the expansive ballroom, oblivious to my quiet turmoil. My family had already woven seamlessly into the fabric of the event, central figures in this flawless production. Meredith spotted me instantly, her gaze subtly critical even from across the room. She glided towards me, champagne flute balanced effortlessly, her smile brittle. "Sheryl, dear, I was beginning to think you'd forgotten. Late nights at your office again?" Her gentle mockery was perfectly pitched, just audible enough for nearby guests to catch. Heat rose to my cheeks, but I held her gaze steadily. Important work, Mother, but I'm here now. She chuckled softly, dismissively. Oh, I'm sure it's terribly important, darling, all those documents you must file. Her eyes swept over me critically. That color washes you out, dear. Dahlia could have picked something more flattering. Behind her, Fletcher laughed quietly, joining us effortlessly. Oh, let's not torment Sheryl too much, Mother. Not everyone can make a career out of being fabulous. Meredith gave Fletcher an indulgent smile. So true. Well, at least she shows up for the photographs. Dahlia drifted over, an amused smirk playing on her perfectly painted lips. You look tired, Sheryl. Must be exhausting filing papers. Their laughter, soft and brittle, cut deeper than any open insult. It felt like the same performance played on loop, year after year, each insult sharper, each humiliation deeper. Yet something felt different this time. A quiet resolve solidifying inside me. For years I'd allowed this to happen, absorbing each insult, silently hoping that someday, somehow, the truth would emerge. But now, standing among them, surrounded by gleaming chandeliers and carefully curated guests, I realized the truth. Their perception would never change, until it was forced to. As Meredith moved on, greeting a newly arrived dignitary, Fletcher and Dahlia following gracefully, I stood alone, swallowing a painful lump in my throat. The evening stretched ahead, a gauntlet of subtle humiliations and dismissive laughter. My fingers twitched around my phone, almost desperate to call Grayson, craving the comfort of validation, understanding, and genuine respect. But instead I squared my shoulders and took a deep breath. Tomorrow my professional success would become undeniable, impossible for even Meredith to mock. Until then, I'd endure. I watched my family laugh easily, their smiles perfect, their victories proudly displayed. But tonight, beneath their careful facades, they unknowingly stood on the edge of revelation. A revelation that would shatter their illusions and force them, finally, to see me clearly. The ballroom buzzed around me, a glittering tapestry of wealth, influence, and insufferable small talk. Guests drifted elegantly from group to group, wine glasses clinking softly, laughter bubbling gently, while my family held court at the center, their charisma like magnets, pulling every gaze. Despite my carefully constructed exterior, I felt utterly exposed, like a prop awkwardly placed in the corner of an elaborate stage set. I navigated the room cautiously, a glass of untouched champagne clutched tightly in my hand, aware of how out of place I seemed. Conversations floated past, words barely audible above the delicate hum of the orchestra, yet every fragment I overheard reinforced my isolation. Oh, there's Dahlia. Her new line was breathtaking. Such talent. And Fletcher, can you believe the case he just won? Stunning, absolutely stunning. When conversations inevitably shifted toward me, they rarely lasted more than a few seconds before trailing into polite disinterest. Sheryl, right? Meredith's youngest? I think she works for local government, was it? The dismissive whispers pressed like invisible weights, stacking silently atop each other. My chest tightened, but I held myself steady, my practiced smile unyielding. It wasn't new, but the ache of enduring it each year never lessened. Instead, it grew heavier, harder, each dismissive glance digging deeper. At some point Meredith summoned me with a delicate gesture. She stood elegantly near a cluster of important guests, her eyes gleaming with barely concealed disdain. I approached warily, bracing for impact. Sheryl, she said lightly, her voice artificially sweet, tell everyone exactly what you do again? It's such an unusual little career, hard for most of us to imagine, isn't it? The group, distinguished and sophisticated, turned curiously toward me. Meredith's subtle smirk invited humiliation. This was her favorite game, publicly reinforcing my insignificance. I took a quiet breath, attempting calm. I work for the FBI, I began cautiously. Cyber Division. A soft ripple of surprise moved through the small audience, Meredith's eyebrow arching dramatically, exaggerated confusion playing beautifully across her flawless face. Oh, the FBI, so, clerical work, administrative tasks, I assume? Filing things, reports, and whatnot? Before I could reply, Fletcher stepped closer, voice dripping mock sympathy. Mother, you're embarrassing her. Not everyone can do glamorous work. Someone must file those reports after all. Laughter followed, polite yet biting. Dahlia joined the circle, elegantly composed as always. We're just teasing, Sheryl, she said gently, eyes sparkling maliciously. We know you do your best. Each comment sliced deeper, yet I kept my expression neutral, refusing to grant them visible satisfaction. Meredith, sensing she'd made her point, moved gracefully onward, leading the conversation expertly back toward Fletcher's latest courtroom victory, Dahlia's new boutique opening, effortlessly leaving me discarded. I escaped quietly, slipping onto the wide terrace outside the ballroom. The cool air brushed my heated face, offering momentary solace. Alone, leaning against the marble railing, I stared into the quiet darkness of the estate gardens, breathing deeply, steadying myself. My fingers trembled, clutching the railing tighter. Suddenly, footsteps approached. I turned swiftly, instinctively tense, only to see Dahlia standing gracefully framed in the doorway, illuminated by the warm ballroom glow behind her. She paused, her eyes softer, yet still faintly condescending. "Sheryl," she began gently, stepping closer, her voice lowered slightly, "you really should stop embarrassing yourself. Accept reality. You're never going to be one of us. Why do you even keep coming to these events?" Her words were gentle knives, precise and intentional, each syllable a carefully calculated wound. Anger flared within me, hot and sharp, but I kept my voice measured, calm, because despite everything, Dahlia, you're still my family. I thought that counted for something. Dahlia's lips curved softly into a pitying smile. "Oh, Sheryl, it counts, just not in the way you wish. Maybe you should focus on finding happiness somewhere, smaller, more realistic. You're only setting yourself up for disappointment here." She turned gracefully, returning inside with effortless elegance, leaving her cruelty hanging heavy in the air. Alone again, I fought back bitter tears, gripping the railing even tighter, knuckles white. Her words echoed painfully, mingling with memories of years of subtle cruelty. The ache was relentless, deep and raw. And yet, amid the humiliation, a quiet resolve hardened within me. I wasn't weak, wasn't insignificant, wasn't a footnote. Tomorrow, my secret work would prove undeniable. No matter how harshly my family dismissed me, tomorrow's mission would rewrite my entire story. Publicly, undeniably, spectacularly. I straightened slowly, taking a deep, steadying breath. The laughter and music from inside filtered softly out, a mocking reminder of my isolation. But for the first time, standing alone beneath the gentle starlight, the loneliness felt less like defeat and more like clarity. They'd spent years shaping me into their invisible, insignificant shadow. Now, with my greatest achievement on the horizon, I could finally see clearly what my family had always been blind to. They underestimated me because they didn't understand strength in quiet spaces, victories won silently and fiercely, hidden from the spotlight. As I stepped back inside, the tension in my shoulders eased slightly. The evening wasn't over, and the pain still lingered. But the gauntlet of their contempt no longer felt endless. Something had shifted, something critical and quiet within me. They had underestimated me for the last time. Dinner was served promptly at 8, as it always was. Another flawlessly orchestrated moment. Every element meticulously planned by Meredith, the master of ceremonies in our family's glittering yet hollow universe. I sat quietly, my heart rate steady despite the growing dread, eyes fixed on the perfectly arranged centerpiece, roses precisely arranged to bloom at optimal angles. Everything in this room was arranged, even our conversations, crafted carefully to project an image of effortless success. Yet, beneath the surface, tension hummed dangerously. Fletcher held court effortlessly, regaling guests with stories of courtroom victories, while Dahlia gracefully steered conversations about Fashion Week exclusives. Meredith basked in the reflected glow of their successes, her eyes glittering proudly. My father Quentin, silent as always, observed everything with measured detachment, his approval reserved for only the most polished achievements. It was precisely midway through the second course when Meredith delicately tapped her glass, signaling attention. Conversations faded obediently, eyes turned expectantly toward her. "Family," she began, her voice silky smooth yet authoritative. "As you all know, each year we take a moment to celebrate our family's successes, and perhaps more importantly," she paused meaningfully, her gaze sliding briefly toward me, "to ensure we maintain certain standards." My pulse quickened, senses sharp, intuition screaming that tonight's humiliation would eclipse any previous embarrassment. Meredith continued, her voice gentler yet dripping with condescension. "Success, as we all understand, requires sacrifice. Standards must be maintained, which brings me, of course, to Sheryl." All eyes turned to me simultaneously, a suffocating pressure that felt physical. My spine straightened instinctively, bracing. Sheryl, Meredith's voice softened artificially, her eyes cool, calculating. We've tried our best to support you, but your stubborn insistence on living below your potential has frankly become an embarrassment. A murmur of surprise rippled across the table. Fletcher exchanged a knowing glance with Dahlia, both faces blank but clearly prepared. My father remained expressionless, impassive. Meredith continued firmly, unwavering. This family stands for excellence, public distinction, real achievement. We cannot continue allowing mediocrity to tarnish our legacy. Heat prickled across my skin, embarrassment rising sharply. But anger rose faster, fierce and controlled, sharpening my thoughts with brutal clarity. What exactly are you saying, Mother? My voice surprised even me, steady, calm, sharper than I'd intended. Meredith smiled thinly, unflinching. Simply that we've decided it's time to formally distance ourselves from your persistent underachievement. You're an adult, Sheryl. It's time you faced consequences. Fletcher cleared his throat smoothly, perfectly rehearsed. We're truly sorry, Sheryl, but we've agreed it's for the best. A clean break, financially and socially. Dahlia's voice added delicately, we only want what's best for everyone involved. The table remained deathly silent, guests exchanging uncomfortable, fascinated glances. Meredith's words, cold and deliberate, settled around me like frost, cutting deeply. The humiliation was complete, devastatingly public, exactly as she had intended. I stared at each face, searching for hesitation, guilt, anything resembling genuine emotion. But each face reflected carefully curated indifference, faint pity perhaps, but no true regret. My family had practiced their cruelty into something almost elegant. Meredith leaned closer, her voice lowered but audible enough for everyone. Please don't embarrass yourself further by arguing, accept this gracefully. Her assumption that I'd quietly accept this latest humiliation snapped something inside me, a barrier collapsing silently. Years of carefully constructed patience evaporated instantly, replaced by a raw, fierce resolve. I stood slowly, calmly, deliberately pushing back my chair. Guests watched intently, breaths held in anticipation, the scene electrified by tension. My voice came clear, louder than intended, yet steady. Gracefully? You publicly disown me, humiliate me, and you ask me to accept it gracefully? Meredith's eyes widened, startled slightly by my unexpected response, her composure momentarily slipping. Fletcher glanced sharply toward our mother, sensing a shift. I've spent years quietly enduring this family's contempt, I continued evenly, voice rising only slightly, words landing heavily. Years accepting your insults, your dismissals, your relentless cruelty. Guests shifted uneasily, aware they'd stumbled into genuine family drama, yet unable to look away. Meredith recovered quickly, voice clipped sharply. Sheryl, that's enough. But I'd already found my voice. Strong, clear, undeniable. No, it's not. You've spent my entire life dismissing me, but tonight you've crossed a line. Tonight you've proven how truly hollow your version of success really is. Fletcher and Dahlia exchanged startled, nervous glances. Meredith's voice hissed sharply, desperate to regain control. Sheryl, stop embarrassing yourself. But I held her gaze fiercely, voice unwavering. I'm not the embarrassment here. Meredith's eyes narrowed dangerously, voice chillingly controlled. Then what are you? The moment stretched, tension thickening. I stared back steadily, knowing precisely who I was. Tomorrow's mission was bigger, more meaningful than their shallow achievements would ever be. I held back only because of protocol, but the truth was about to explode spectacularly into view. Someone you don't even know, I replied quietly, simply, and someone you're about to regret underestimating. A stunned silence filled the room as I turned slowly, leaving the table behind, my family's shocked faces etched into memory. Yet, as I walked calmly through the hushed ballroom, something shifted permanently within me. No longer humiliated, but freed. Outside, cool night air filled my lungs deeply. The humiliation had been brutal, but I had survived. Tomorrow morning, the hidden brilliance they'd dismissed as insignificant would shatter their illusions, changing everything they believed about me forever. My invisibility ended here. Now, finally, I could begin stepping into the light. The night sky above Crestwood Manor felt vast and mercifully indifferent. As I stood alone, the distant sounds of the gala now just an uncomfortable hum behind me. My family's cruelty still stung sharply, but an odd calm settled in my bones, a serenity born from finally stepping free of their shadows. My pulse slowed, my breathing steadied, and for the first time, Beneath the humiliation and pain, I felt strangely powerful. I'd barely had a moment to collect my thoughts when my phone suddenly erupted into vibration, urgent and relentless. A quick glance at the screen showed Grayson's name flashing insistently, pulling me instantly back into my hidden reality, the reality of my true identity, the identity I'd fought for, sacrificed for, and guarded fiercely from everyone outside a small, trusted circle. "Grayson?" I answered quietly, stepping further into the shadows, voice tense. "What's going on?" His words burst forth rapidly, barely controlled excitement evident in his voice. "Sheryl, you need to get somewhere quiet. Right now, it's happening." A sharp thrill surged through me, replacing all lingering humiliation instantly. Adrenaline snapped me into full clarity, senses heightened, professional calm settling in. "What's the status?" "It's starting earlier than we anticipated," Grayson replied urgently. "The target accelerated the timeline. Your program intercepted the attack. It's massive. We've already neutralized the threat, but the news is going public now. Sheryl, your system just saved millions of lives." I inhaled sharply, gripping the phone tightly, the enormity of his words sinking in. All those lonely nights, the silent victories, secret battles, all of it was finally emerging into the light. The impact was immense, undeniable, impossible for anyone, even my family, to dismiss. "How long until it hits the news?" I asked, pulse racing. "Minutes," Grayson replied swiftly. "The Bureau's coordinating a controlled release, but there's no way this stays quiet. Media's already scrambling. Your name is coming up repeatedly. Your work is about to go global." My heart pounded furiously, emotions swelling wildly. Gratitude, relief, pride, all intertwined fiercely within me. But beneath it all was an even stronger, simpler emotion: vindication. I exhaled deeply, momentarily closing my eyes. "Thank you, Grayson. You have no idea how much this means." "Sheryl," he replied warmly, sincerity evident in his voice, "we've always known how brilliant you are. It's just about time the rest of the world saw it too." I ended the call, letting his words sink deep into my consciousness. Behind me, muted laughter echoed from the ballroom, a ghost of the humiliation I'd endured mere minutes before. Yet now it felt distant, irrelevant, a relic of a past I'd finally begun to shed. A commotion inside quickly disrupted my quiet solitude, a strange electric energy filtering outward from the ballroom. Voices rose sharply, excitement and disbelief rippling audibly. Something major had clearly happened. Instinctively, I stepped toward the doorway, peering cautiously inside. Guests gathered around screens, faces illuminated by the glow of breaking news broadcasts, murmurs spreading rapidly. I entered slowly, unnoticed at first, my heart beating faster. On a screen at the far end of the room, a news anchor spoke urgently, a dramatic headline scrolling beneath. "FBI thwarts major international cyber attack. Unprecedented operation saves millions." My breath caught sharply, recognition and pride flooding through me simultaneously. Meredith stood frozen, eyes wide with shock, champagne flute trembling slightly in her manicured grip. Fletcher and Dahlia exchanged stunned, uncertain glances. My father, ever impassive, stared fixedly at the screen, expression unreadable yet clearly disturbed. And then the anchor spoke my name. The operation, credited primarily to FBI cybercrime specialist Sheryl Bennett, represents an unprecedented advancement in cyber defense. Ms. Bennett's proactive surveillance program successfully neutralized threats previously thought unstoppable. This is a historic day for national security. Silence engulfed the ballroom, heavy and stunned. Then, as one, every face turned slowly toward me, dozens of eyes wide with astonishment. I stood calmly, meeting their gazes evenly, savoring the shift in their expressions, from pity and dismissal to awe and embarrassment. Meredith stepped forward, composure visibly shaken. "Sheryl, is this you?" Her voice was tentative, almost hesitant, her usual icy confidence entirely evaporated. Fletcher's expression shifted rapidly from confusion to disbelief, while Dahlia stood frozen, speechless, elegant facade momentarily shattered. I smiled slightly, feeling a quiet strength radiating from my core. "Surprised, Mother? It's remarkable what someone mediocre can achieve." She flinched slightly, my words landing precisely as intended. Fletcher moved uncertainly forward, voice carefully controlled yet strained. "Why didn't you tell us? Would you have listened?" I asked simply, voice steady. Silence answered clearly enough. "Exactly." Guests murmured softly, witnessing a private family drama unfold publicly, embarrassment and fascination intertwined. Meredith, desperately attempting to recover, stepped forward, her voice softer, an almost pleading note hidden beneath forced authority. Sheryl, clearly we misunderstood. Let's discuss this privately. But I'd endured enough hypocrisy, enough condescension disguised as family concern. I shook my head slowly, deliberately stepping back. No, Mother, I said firmly, clearly, there's nothing left to discuss. You've shown me exactly what family means to you, and I've finally accepted it. I turned away from them, walking calmly toward the exit, leaving behind stunned silence. I'd spent a lifetime silently enduring their dismissals, fighting invisibly. But tonight, my invisible victories finally shattered their illusions entirely. As I stepped outside into the fresh night air, freedom surged through me. My secret was exposed, my brilliance undeniable, my invisibility permanently shattered. And though my family now scrambled desperately behind me, seeking forgiveness, reconciliation, something shifted fundamentally inside me. I didn't need their validation anymore. I had my own. I walked slowly down the grand steps of Crestwood Manor, feeling the weight of countless eyes upon me, yet my own gaze remained fixed firmly ahead. Behind me, the ballroom murmured with confusion, my family scrambling desperately to salvage their shattered public facade. Their panic was palpable, their hypocrisy laid bare before an audience they'd always strived to impress. But I no longer cared. The cool night air washed gently over me, clearing away the tension that had bound me for years. I paused near the valet stand, breathing deeply, savoring my newfound liberation. Moments later, hurried footsteps sounded behind me. I didn't need to turn around to know it was Meredith, her desperation a bitter victory I'd never anticipated. Sheryl, please! Her voice, uncharacteristically frantic, caught slightly in her throat. Don't leave. Not like this. I turned slowly, meeting her eyes. They were wide, vulnerable, unfamiliar territory for a woman whose poise had always been unbreakable. The cracks in her facade revealed someone smaller, emptier, and more frightened than I'd ever imagined. You disowned me, Mother, I replied softly, evenly. Publicly humiliated me. What more is there left to say? She shook her head rapidly, voice breaking. We didn't know, Sheryl, how could we have known? I tilted my head slightly, considering her words carefully, feeling neither sympathy nor anger, just clarity. You never tried. All those years, not once did you ever truly see me. Not once. She flinched visibly, guilt flickering briefly behind her carefully applied makeup. Fletcher and Dahlia joined her quickly, standing awkwardly behind her, both looking pale, subdued, so different from their carefully polished personas just moments before. Fletcher stepped forward, voice strained yet controlled. We misunderstood you, Sheryl. I'm sorry. Truly. His apology was unexpected, almost convincing, yet his sincerity, however genuine, felt hollow. Too little, too late. Are you sorry for misunderstanding me, I asked gently, or for publicly embarrassing yourselves? Silence answered sharply enough. Fletcher's expression twisted slightly, embarrassment evident, confirming what I already knew. Dahlia stepped hesitantly forward, her voice quiet, softer than I'd ever heard. Sheryl, we're a family. Doesn't that count for anything? Her question hung painfully between us, laced with irony and desperation. I considered carefully, aware of the gathered guests discreetly observing the drama unfolding on the manor steps. Family means respect, Dahlia, I said softly. It means support, love. You've offered me none of those things. Dahlia's face flushed, shame deepening her eyes. Meredith reached out awkwardly, her perfectly manicured hand hovering uncertainly, then falling limply. We can fix this, Sheryl. Let us fix this. Her desperation was painful to witness, but beneath it was selfishness, a desire to mend their shattered reputation rather than genuinely heal the deep wounds inflicted upon me. You want this fixed because it suits your image, I replied calmly, clearly. But I'm done playing your game. Tonight you lost control of the narrative, and I gained mine. Meredith stared silently, stunned, the truth landing harshly between us. She blinked rapidly, tears finally breaking through the surface. Yet, even now, her tears felt strategic, another attempt at manipulation. Sheryl, her voice quivered slightly, yet still controlled, precise. Please don't humiliate your family further. That irony finally cracked something deep within me, releasing quiet laughter. Sad, genuine, freeing. Humiliate you? Mother, you've built your reputation by humiliating me. For years, I absorbed your cruelty, believing I deserved it. Tonight, you've finally lost your power. Meredith's eyes widened, raw pain and disbelief mingling openly. Fletcher and Dahlia stood silently, shocked by the unfiltered truth. Around us, whispers rippled discreetly through the watching guests, absorbing this real-life drama that shattered my family's carefully curated illusion. I turned away decisively, handing the valet my ticket. As my car pulled smoothly around, Meredith stepped desperately forward once more, pleading openly now. "Please, Sheryl, let us talk this through privately." I paused, door held open, turning once more. "We've said everything already. Tonight, you finally understand what it feels like to be dismissed, to be invisible, to be publicly humiliated. Remember this moment." Fletcher moved forward uncertainly. "What can we do to make it right?" My answer was immediate, simple and utterly final. "Nothing. Your chance ended long ago. The only thing you can do now is learn." I climbed into my car, closing the door with deliberate finality. In the rearview mirror, their reflections stood frozen, pale, stunned beneath the soft lights of Crestwood Manor. The family that had always overshadowed me now seemed strangely small, insignificant. Driving away, the city lights blurred gently past, my mind surprisingly calm, quiet, and clear. I didn't feel victory or vengeance, only a profound sense of freedom. For the first time, I'd shown them the real Sheryl, and their rejection no longer defined my worth. Tonight, they'd learned that the overlooked child, the dismissed sister, the invisible daughter had quietly reshaped the world in ways their limited perspectives could never fully grasp. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new struggles, new victories, but my worth would never again depend on their validation. Finally, undeniably, I'd stepped out of their shadows and into my own light, reclaiming my narrative completely. And as the road stretched ahead, brighter and clearer than ever, I knew my true story had only just begun. When I finally pulled into the quiet parking lot of our bureau office, it felt like stepping from one world into another. The glamorous but poisonous atmosphere of Crestwood Manor dissolved behind me, replaced by a reassuringly familiar space. This building, with its bland facade, its worn carpets, its fluorescent-lit hallways, was where I truly belonged. Here, I wasn't invisible, I was respected, appreciated, and genuinely seen. As I entered the operations center, Grayson looked up sharply from his console, relief brightening his exhausted features. "Sheryl," he exclaimed warmly, rising quickly and crossing the room to greet me. "We watched the news feed, you handled that beautifully." "Thanks," I replied softly, allowing his praise to sink in slowly. "But it was the program that spoke loudest tonight. It did exactly what we hoped. No, better." He smiled broadly, nodding firmly. "You did this, Sheryl. Every line of code, every sleepless night, it all came together. They see it now, the whole bureau, everyone. It's finally out there." Behind him, the screens displayed live coverage from multiple networks, my name scrolling boldly beneath reports celebrating a groundbreaking security victory. The news was spreading rapidly, recognition long overdue finally arriving. Yet standing here with Grayson, away from cameras and judgment, the quiet pride of this private moment mattered even more. The door opened softly behind me, revealing familiar faces, colleagues who'd become friends, people who knew the quiet strength beneath my reserved exterior. Danielle, always steady and supportive, Marcus, quietly brilliant, and Nina, whose sharp humor and sharper instincts had saved countless operations. They moved toward me with genuine smiles, their expressions warm, authentic. "Congratulations, Sheryl." Danielle's voice was gentle yet firm. "We always knew you were incredible. It's about time the rest of the world caught up." Marcus grinned knowingly. "You gave them a good shock, didn't you? Bet they won't underestimate you again." Nina laughed quietly, eyes sparkling. "Your family's probably scrambling right now, trying to figure out how to spin this. Must feel good, Sheryl, finally proving them wrong." I chuckled softly, warmth spreading through my chest. It did feel good, not because of revenge, but because here, among these people, I was genuinely understood and valued. Here, my identity wasn't shaped by expectation or reputation, but by my own abilities, actions, and character. "Honestly," I admitted quietly, "their reaction doesn't even matter much anymore. Tonight, I finally realized what family truly means." Grayson nodded thoughtfully, his gaze gentle. "Family isn't always blood. Sometimes it's the people who actually see you, who lift you up, who believe in you. You've always had that here." The sincerity in his words touched me deeply. Gratitude swelled in my chest, warmth displacing the lingering cold from earlier humiliation. You're right. It just took me far too long to realize it. The group moved closer instinctively, warmth and camaraderie filling the small, unglamorous room. In this modest, functional space, far removed from the glossy, superficial elegance of Crestwood Manor, I felt genuinely at home. Danielle squeezed my arm gently, her voice kind. We're proud of you, Sheryl, not just for tonight but for all the times you quietly stepped up when no one was watching. Marcus nodded earnestly. You earned this moment. Own it. I drew in a deep breath, absorbing their collective encouragement, each word quietly repairing invisible scars left from years of dismissal. They'd always understood my value, even when I couldn't see it clearly myself. The soft hum of equipment around us was comforting, familiar. Outside, the city was settling into a quiet rhythm, unaware yet safer because of our unseen work. Tomorrow, reporters would seek interviews, politicians would praise, the world would celebrate. But tonight, I found deeper satisfaction in the quiet appreciation of my chosen family. Grayson's expression softened further, his voice gentle, sincere. So how does it feel to finally be seen? I smiled softly, the emotion unexpectedly strong. It feels peaceful, like I finally stepped fully into myself. Danielle laughed warmly. Good, because from now on, no more hiding. You've earned your place in the spotlight. Her words resonated deeply. For years my invisibility had been both burden and shield, necessary, yet painful. But tonight, standing among people who genuinely cared, who saw me fully, I understood invisibility was no longer necessary. I was ready, finally, to stand openly, confidently, visibly myself. The laughter that followed was gentle, easy, the tension draining away completely. For the first time tonight I laughed genuinely, freely, comfortably, no pretense, no guardedness, no hidden pain beneath. My chosen family had been quietly protecting and lifting me long before this moment. They'd patiently awaited my own realization of what they'd always known. I wasn't invisible. I was simply waiting for the right moment, the right people, the right courage to finally step forward. And now that moment had arrived. In the days that followed, the boundaries between my previous life and my newfound clarity snapped clearly into place. My phone buzzed incessantly with interview requests, praise from top officials, even subtle, carefully worded overtures from Meredith, Fletcher, and Dahlia, all seeking ways to reconnect or repair their fractured reputation. But I drew a careful line, establishing a fortress of new boundaries, solid and immovable. My professional life surged with possibilities I'd once barely imagined. Invitations from prestigious conferences arrived, industry leaders asked for my opinions on national security strategy, reporters clamored for interviews, curious about the woman behind the program that had reshaped cybersecurity overnight. But among these external accolades, what mattered most was the space I created for myself. Space to breathe, reflect, and redefine my own rules. A week after the gala, I sat quietly in a simple, cozy cafe near the office, Grayson seated across from me, steam rising gently from our coffee cups. He studied me carefully, concern and pride mingling softly in his gaze. You look different, he said gently, breaking the comfortable silence. Like a weight's lifted. I nodded slowly, thoughtfully, stirring my coffee absent-mindedly. It feels different. Clearer. Like I finally have permission to live on my own terms. His expression warmed, encouragement lighting his eyes. That's exactly how it should be. You've always had that permission, you know, but sometimes you need something dramatic to really believe it. His words resonated deeply, echoing truths I'd gradually internalized. My family's rejection, though brutally painful, had ultimately broken open a new path, a path defined solely by me. The bell above the cafe door chimed gently, drawing my attention. Unexpectedly, Dahlia stood hesitantly in the doorway, appearing uncharacteristically uncertain, almost fragile. Spotting me, she approached slowly, her normally poised posture now tinged with hesitation. Sheryl, she began quietly, her voice softer than I'd ever known it. Could we talk? I glanced briefly at Grayson, who silently offered support, then nodded to Dahlia, indicating she could sit. Her presence across from me felt surreal, strange, yet the unease was all hers, no longer mine. I'm listening, I said calmly, sipping my coffee, but I'm not promising anything. She nodded, clearly uncomfortable, unused to vulnerability. I underestimated you. We all did. I can't undo any of it, but I want you to know. I'm genuinely sorry. I studied her carefully, discerning sincerity beneath her discomfort. It surprised me, this glimpse beneath her carefully cultivated persona. Yet it didn't erase years of cruelty and dismissal. Why now, Dahlia? I asked gently, firmly. Because you feel guilty? Or because your reputation is hurting? She winced slightly, eyes reflecting genuine shame. Maybe both, I won't lie. Watching your success, it forced me to see how shallow everything we've built truly is. Her honesty was refreshing, painful, yet genuine. I appreciated the courage it took for her to speak openly, even if reconciliation felt impossible at this moment. Dahlia, our family was always about appearances, I explained softly, gently. But real family, real relationships, require sincerity. You've always been good at playing roles, but I stopped playing. My life isn't about roles anymore. She nodded slowly, absorbing my words quietly. I know, that's what made me realize how deeply we've hurt you. For a moment, silence settled between us, heavy with acknowledgement. I finally spoke gently, honestly. I appreciate your apology, Dahlia. I do. But forgiveness takes time. And boundaries. She nodded again, understanding. I get it. I just wanted you to know I'm beginning to see the truth. And I'm sorry. Watching her leave felt bittersweet yet deeply empowering. I'd faced the past, confronted it directly, and asserted clearly that forgiveness, while possible, required effort, authenticity, and respect. My new boundaries weren't about exclusion, they were about self-respect and emotional safety. Grayson observed quietly, his voice warm. You handled that perfectly. I exhaled slowly, relief and clarity settling comfortably within me. It's strange how powerful clarity is. I spent years chasing acceptance, when all I ever needed was to accept myself. Grayson nodded firmly, eyes reflecting genuine pride. Exactly, and you finally see yourself clearly, your value, your boundaries, your terms. His words settled comfortably inside me, reaffirming the quiet, powerful realization that had reshaped my life completely. Over the next few days, as more attempts at reconciliation came from Fletcher, from Meredith, each carefully constructed and yet deeply flawed, I held firm, gentle, yet immovable. Eventually my message resonated clearly. They retreated slowly, forced to reflect, reconsider, and face the painful consequences of their choices. Boundaries weren't punishment, they were protection, honesty, and freedom. They allowed me space to grow, thrive, and finally build a life defined solely by authenticity. Days later, stepping into my new office, the FBI's recognition having granted me new opportunities, I gazed out the wide window, the city stretching brightly below. I'd built a fortress, carefully and intentionally, protecting my emotional health, nurturing self-respect, and inviting only those willing to genuinely see me. Inside this fortress, peace flourished, clarity grew, and I finally embraced a life truly, beautifully my own. In the weeks that followed, the clarity I had fought so hard to achieve evolved into a powerful purpose. My public emergence as a leader in cybersecurity opened doors far beyond the confines of the FBI. Invitations poured in. Industry summits, universities, global forums, asking me to share my story, to mentor young minds, and help shape policies that would protect future generations. It was overwhelming yet deeply validating. Yet amid this newfound visibility, I discovered a deeper calling. If my family's rejection had taught me anything, it was the devastating power of dismissal. The subtle cruelty that shapes lives, diminishes dreams, and silently wounds self-worth. So I decided to reclaim the Bennett family legacy, redefining it not through prestige and appearances but through genuine impact, empathy, and support. One crisp afternoon, standing before an audience at Georgetown, my alma mater, I shared openly, honestly, without pretense or facade. Hundreds of students listened attentively, eyes wide with a mixture of awe and quiet recognition. When I was your age, I began gently, calmly, I desperately sought validation from people incapable of truly seeing me. It took years to realize their blindness wasn't my failure, it was theirs. True worth isn't something others can grant you, it's something you claim for yourself. The students absorbed my words quietly, thoughtfully. Afterward, a young woman named Bryn approached hesitantly, her expression shy yet determined. Your story really resonated with me, she admitted softly, eyes earnest. My family's always favored my siblings too. How did you stop caring about their approval? I smiled gently, warmth flooding my heart. I focused on building something meaningful to me, something authentic. Once I started genuinely valuing myself, their approval mattered less. It still hurts sometimes, but it doesn't control me anymore." Bryn nodded slowly, hopeful. "I want that too. Freedom from always feeling not good enough." That brief conversation lingered deeply within me. Bryn was one of many who approached afterward, sharing their own struggles, their quiet dreams, their painful family dynamics. Their stories became part of my motivation to do even more, to transform pain into tangible, lasting impact. Inspired, I launched an initiative, the Bennett Foundation, dedicated specifically to empowering those overlooked by their families and communities, young people whose unconventional dreams or talents didn't align with societal expectations. The foundation offered mentorship, scholarships, resources, and most importantly, validation and support. The day of the foundation's launch event arrived quickly. A modest but energized gathering filled a conference room overlooking the city skyline, each face reflecting quiet hopefulness, cautious optimism. Standing at the podium, seeing all those eyes watching me expectantly, emotion surged unexpectedly. "For years I was invisible," I began softly, clearly, "overlooked by those I loved most. But invisibility taught me something crucial. How to observe, but how to understand quietly, how to create change beneath the surface. Today, we're reclaiming our visibility, we're choosing ourselves, and we're helping others do the same." Applause rippled warmly through the room, emotion evident in every face. Bryn, now one of the foundation's first recipients, sat near the front, her expression reflecting confidence and gratitude. Later, as I moved among the attendees, answering questions and hearing their stories, my phone buzzed gently. Meredith's name flashed unexpectedly on the screen, her message brief yet filled with unexpected humility. "Proud of what you've created. Perhaps someday I'll truly understand. Until then, keep helping others see what we failed to." Her message was startling, unexpected, yet quietly validating. I considered carefully before responding, simply, yet sincerely, "Thank you. Perhaps you will." Closure didn't always arrive neatly wrapped or dramatically declared. Sometimes it emerged gently, slowly, quietly, an unspoken understanding finally acknowledged, a small step toward healing. That night, standing alone afterward, gazing out at the quiet city, satisfaction and quiet joy mingled deeply within me. I'd transformed rejection into reclamation, pain into purpose, isolation into genuine community. The Bennett name, once associated only with superficial prestige, now stood for genuine empowerment, empathy, authenticity. Grayson joined me quietly, his presence comforting, grounding. "Did you ever imagine you'd redefine your family name like this?" he asked softly, thoughtfully. I shook my head slowly, smiling slightly. "No, but maybe deep down it was what I always hoped, to turn something painful into something meaningful." He smiled warmly, nodding firmly. "You've done that and more, Sheryl. You've given people a safe place, validation, visibility, and hope. That's an incredible legacy." Legacy. The word resonated deeply, differently now, no longer defined by shallow standards of success or appearance, but measured in lives genuinely touched, futures reshaped, truths honored openly. As I watched the city's lights flicker gently in the distance, pride surged quietly, not from external validation, but from internal fulfillment. Reclaiming my own legacy had been an act of courage, authenticity, and resilience. And now, through this foundation, I could help others reclaim theirs as well. The Bennett name was no longer a shadow to escape. It was a beacon of hope, a promise of genuine recognition, and a testament to the quiet strength of finally being seen. Months passed, filled with countless events, speeches, mentorship sessions, and meaningful connections. Each encounter further solidified the truth I'd spent years seeking. Genuine self-worth was never external, it was rooted deeply within. On an evening marked by quiet reflection, I sat alone on my balcony, city lights twinkling gently below, the distant hum of traffic soothing rather than overwhelming. My journey, marked by struggle and triumph, humiliation and validation, had come full circle, not because of recognition or revenge, but through profound inner peace. A gentle breeze stirred softly around me, carrying a calming sense of finality. I considered everything: my painful family dinners, the quiet victories in lonely offices, the brutal yet ultimately liberating gala night, and finally, the foundation I'd built. Each moment, whether difficult or joyful, had shaped me into the woman sitting here tonight. Confident, empowered, and finally at peace. The quiet buzz of my phone gently interrupted my thoughts. Grayson's message appeared on the screen. Hope you're celebrating yourself tonight. You deserve every ounce of happiness. A smile formed naturally, warmth spreading gently through me. I replied softly, "For the first time I truly am, thanks for helping me get here." As I set the phone aside, my mind returned briefly, gently, to my family. Meredith, Fletcher, Dahlia, even Quentin. They'd shaped my journey, often painfully, yet ultimately fueling a transformation they'd never anticipated. I no longer resented them, nor desired their validation. I simply recognized them as flawed people who'd lost something precious through their blindness. But I'd found clarity and healing in their absence. My worth was no longer dependent on their approval or apologies. I'd learned to define success by my own terms, on my own timeline, through authenticity and genuine purpose. The city below glowed warmly, lights dancing softly, each a quiet symbol of the countless lives lived beneath, each with their own struggles, victories, and quiet invisibilities. My story wasn't unique, it was deeply, powerfully universal. My journey was theirs, was yours, was everyone's. And now that realization filled me with peace. This wasn't just my story. It belonged to everyone who'd ever felt invisible, dismissed, underestimated. Tonight, looking out over the quiet city, I finally felt truly visible, not in headlines or speeches but within myself, my soul deeply and comfortably at peace. The pain of rejection had long since faded, replaced entirely by gratitude, for clarity gained, for boundaries set, for a legacy reclaimed. Tonight, my family's dismissal felt distant, powerless, irrelevant. My chosen family had embraced me completely, validating me through sincerity, empathy, and unwavering respect. Invisibility had once felt like punishment. Now its memory served as gentle motivation, a reminder never to overlook someone's quiet strength, their hidden struggles, their potential waiting patiently beneath the surface. Tomorrow I would continue my work, empowering others to discover their inner strength, their authentic voices, their undeniable worth. My journey had taught me precisely how critical that work was, not just professionally but personally, intimately, deeply. Standing slowly, I moved toward the balcony's edge, looking out quietly at the city stretched peacefully below. Each light represented someone else's story, someone else's quiet moment of reflection, clarity, discovery. Each represented potential, unseen yet undeniable. My journey toward self-validation had begun painfully, rooted in rejection. But tonight, standing quietly above the city, peace flowed gently through me, profound and genuine. Finally, undeniably, I'd found my truth. My strength, my self-worth, no longer hidden beneath invisibility but shining softly, openly, confidently. And that peace, that deep, powerful acceptance was worth everything. Have you ever felt invisible, overlooked, or underestimated by the people closest to you? My journey was about stepping out from beneath the shadows of rejection and into a life built firmly on my own terms. But now I want to hear from you. What moments in your life made you realize that true validation comes from within? Please share your stories in the comments below. If my journey resonated with you, please like, subscribe, and share this video with someone who needs to know it's okay to define success in their own way. Remember, your worth is never defined by someone else's blindness. It's defined by your courage, your authenticity, and your quiet strength. Thank you for being part of this journey with me. Stay strong, stay visible, and always believe in your own truth.